Good afternoon, everyone. Today marks our midterm examination, a valuable opportunity for you to question and examine me as your professor. Before we turn to the questions you have submitted through YouTube and Twitter, I want to begin with a brief but important discussion of the recent ceasefire announcement between the United States and Iran. Yesterday, Donald Trump declared a 2-week pause in hostilities and stated that the United States and Iran would meet in Pakistan to negotiate a possible long-term ceasefire. He emphasized that the framework for these talks would be the 10-point Iranian plan. When you examine that plan closely, it reads less like a negotiation and more like a complete American surrender. The first point demands that the United States guarantee it will never attack Iran again. Iran would retain complete control over the Strait of Hormuz, retain the right to enrich uranium for its nuclear program, and see every sanction, primary, secondary, and those imposed by the United Nations Security Council and the International Atomic Energy Agency, lifted immediately. In addition, the United States and Israel would pay full compensation and reparations for all damage inflicted on Iran. American combat forces would withdraw entirely from the Middle East, effectively ceding regional dominance to Tehran. Finally, and most critically, Washington would end all hostilities against Iran's network of proxies, including Hezbollah in Lebanon and the Houthis in Yemen. This is not the opening bid of a serious negotiator. It is the behavior of someone who has already decided the outcome. Imagine walking into a shop hoping to sell a book for $100 but starting the haggling at $1,000. If the shopkeeper instantly agrees, you know something is profoundly wrong. The same logic applies here. There is almost no chance this ceasefire will hold. In fact, reports are already emerging that it is being violated even as we speak. 3 independent voices on Twitter have highlighted the contradictions that make this announcement look like theater rather than diplomacy. First, why is the United States continuing to dispatch major assets such as the aircraft carrier USS George Bush to the region if peace is genuinely the goal? The only plausible explanation is that Washington is buying time to position ground forces for a decisive strike, possibly seizing the strait itself, with Israel potentially providing a false flag pretext. Second, Iran has adopted what is called a mosaic defense. Its 31 provinces function as autonomous cells, each responsible for its own strategy, attack, and defense. There is no longer a centralized command structure that can simply be negotiated with. Even if the political leadership in Tehran signs a deal in Pakistan, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and provincial units will not trust it. The mosaic system is essentially a dead man's switch. It only ends when one side is utterly defeated. Implementing any ceasefire would require Tehran to reassert control over these decentralized units, an act that could trigger civil war inside Iran. Third, despite the announced pause, the United States maintains a massive air bridge, moving troops, planes, artillery, and tanks into the theater. These facts together suggest that both political systems have lost control over their militaries. The soldiers on both sides are committed to fighting to the end. What this reveals is a deepening schism between Iran's political leadership and its military. Until recently, Iran appeared to be winning on the battlefield, but fissures are now opening. As the war drags on, global economic pain, rising fuel prices, supply chain breakdowns, potential food shortages will turn public opinion against Tehran, even among its allies Russia and China. Yet because of the mosaic structure, Iran cannot easily end the conflict without total victory or total defeat. The announced ceasefire is therefore nothing more than a public relations stunt. A major point of contention remains whether Lebanon and the proxies are covered by the deal. Iran insists they are. Israel immediately responded with more than 100 strikes across Lebanon in a single 10-minute window, killing at least 250 people. The United States has since clarified that it never considered Hezbollah part of the agreement, with Vice President J.D. Vance calling it a legitimate misunderstanding. In plain language, Washington and Jerusalem have already carved out a loophole. They are not serious about peace. Now let us move to the midterm questions you have prepared. One of the most frequently asked is how I can claim the American empire is declining while also arguing that the United States may benefit from this war. There is no contradiction. The empire as a global hegemon may lose its grip on the Middle East, but the American nation-state remains extraordinarily powerful. It can still dominate its continental fortress, Mexico, Canada, and the sea lanes, while allowing peripheral regions to fracture. The real question is not whether America suffers, but which American elites benefit from the reconfiguration of power. A cluster of questions revolves around eschatology and its role in shaping global events, along with the influence of secret societies. History is not random chaos. It moves in discernible patterns, much like a river current. Skilled observers can read those patterns. Eschatology is the attempt to turn those patterns into a coherent story, one that functions as both prophecy and plan. Occultists, poets, and prophets first imagine the ending of history. They form secret societies to study and advance that vision. The rich and powerful join these societies not out of mysticism, but pragmatism. They want advanced knowledge to protect and grow their wealth. These societies then recruit agents, figures such as Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, who act as vectors to move events toward the desired conclusion. The system is dynamic and fluid, not a top-down conspiracy. Different societies compete, elites switch loyalties for advantage, and agents themselves often believe they serve a higher divine calling. Understanding the story the occultists wish to tell allows us to forecast the long-term direction of events, even when we cannot see every backstage maneuver. Applying this lens to China is crucial. China is neither a civilization nor a traditional nation-state. It is a construct of the empire itself. The global system took its own elements: finance, education, media, culture, parasitic organizations, and embedded them inside China to create a seemingly independent vassal state, a mirage of modernity. That is why China was welcomed into the WTO and why so many Chinese students were sent abroad. When the system comes under strain, as it is now from the conflict with Iran, China feels the pressure immediately. Beijing is therefore desperate for peace in the Middle East. Rumors already circulate that China has pressured Iran to negotiate. The same systemic logic explains the Hollywood-Pentagon complex. No single sector believes it controls events. Each lives in its own bubble: culture, media, education, believing it dictates policy. This fragmentation prevents genuine agency. Emerging powers such as China are not true alternatives. They are extensions of the same system and will suffer if it fractures. For individuals seeking to navigate the coming era of economic disruption, civil strife, and resource scarcity, the answer is not solitary preparation. Individuals cannot survive alone. You must educate yourselves about the larger patterns, precisely why I teach these classes, and then build communities. Reach out, be generous, form genuine friendships, start families. I have 3 children myself. In a collapsing world, children give purpose and energy that no amount of money or fame can provide. We are here to live creative, significant lives and to extend the imagination of the universe. Family and community supply that drive. The primary drivers of geopolitical action remain the occultists. They supply the imagination within which everyone else operates. Wealth and power without vision are sterile. Thoughts precede action. We live inside the stories these occultists dream. Let me now address several specific questions that have been raised. First, on the timing of my predictions about the US-Iran war, I speak in trends, not precise dates, because history moves in general directions. Correlation and causation are distinct. Successful predictions validate a model only provisionally. I remain aware of my own limitations now that my words influence events. I am no longer a pure observer, but a participant. Politicians are indeed agents of secret societies, yet agents possess free will. Napoleon, Caesar, Hitler, and Stalin all eventually betrayed their backers when they believed a higher calling compelled them. Trump and Putin will likely do the same. We are moving away from unipolarity toward a multipolar world of competing empires. The American Technate in North America, a Russian sphere, and an Israeli Pax Judaica in the Middle East. These powers will sometimes cooperate, sometimes compete. The arrangement will be unstable and probably short-lived. On trade, America's unique advantage is naval control of the seas. It can retreat into a continental fortress while denying others access. Railways and land routes cannot fully replace sea lanes as long as Iran remains the pivot. Destroying Iran keeps China's Belt and Road and Russian-African trade vulnerable, Russia's invasion of Ukraine was not mere emotional reaction. It required a grand strategy and eschatological vision to align institutions and sustain political will. The same is true for any major conflict. Nation-states themselves are fictions, collections of elite interests. Much of Asia's and the Middle East's elites keep their wealth and families in the West. Their loyalty is to themselves, not their peoples. That is why vassal states such as the GCC collapse easily while isolated Iran remains cohesive. Attempts to bypass the Strait of Hormuz via pipelines through Oman fail for the same reason. Iran can strike pipelines anywhere. The vulnerability lies in the global economy's dependence on cheap energy, not a single choke point. Trump's erratic style is calculated. Unpredictability paralyzes opponents, distracts attention from backstage maneuvers, and preserves maximum flexibility. His ultimate aim appears to be a third term achieved through prolonged crisis, possibly martial law, so he can realize the technate vision of a fortified North America trading selectively with the world. If the petrodollar, AI bubbles, and treasury bonds collapse, finance and tech elites lose. But resource-based manufacturing can rebound. Transnational capital will not vanish. It will shift toward the highest short-term returns, which currently favor the Middle East under Israeli influence. To combat the war on truth, practice doubt, debate, and imagination. Question your own models through predictions. Engage opposing views honestly. Dare to make speculative leaps into the unknown. Truth often lies beyond the obvious. Asia and Australia appear passive because most are vassal states co-opted by American interests. They lack independent power projection capacity. In any American Civil War, Texas, combining energy, dynamism, Christian nationalist coherence, and AI capability, would likely emerge dominant. Coastal professional managerial elites would suffer. Survival, again, depends on family and community. Iran should not pursue nuclear weapons. A handful would invite American retaliation while fostering complacency. Creativity and resilience thrive under threat. Saudi Arabia prioritizes defeating Iran first to claim leadership of the Muslim world. Trump excels at domestic politics but is no military strategist. Israel's physical destruction would not derail Pax Judaica because transnational capital can rebuild the region using foreign labor. The parasite simply finds a new host. Wealth will continue transferring from young to old during chaos because capital expertly distributes risk. AI will hedge across political lines. Categories I use are analytical simplifications. America is not deliberately weakening the global economy, but its fortress position ensures it survives the consequences better than others. The ceasefire will not hold. Negotiations in Pakistan by familiar faces who helped start the conflict are pure theater. Public opinion has never mattered in geopolitics. Empires commit atrocities, yet endure in memory as glorious. Power, not polls, decides history. In closing, the age of the US-centric global economy is ending, not because a new hegemon will replace it, but because no other actor is willing to bear the enormous costs of providing the world's reserve currency and enforcing contracts militarily. Regional powers cannot peacefully coordinate benefits without an imperial enforcer. The coming decades of chaos will wipe out perhaps 90% of humanity, those who cling to materialism. Those who turn toward religion and spiritual meaning for comfort and story will survive and thrive. Do not worry about secret societies or the end of the world. Focus on your own transformation. Learn, develop spiritually and emotionally, build family and community. That is how you live a purposeful life. We will take a one-week break for midterms and return to continue our study of game theory and the US-Iran war. Thank you for your excellent questions. I look forward to seeing you all again soon.